So let's start with today's daily market outlook. So first of all, we have opened the US dollar index, and now for the US dollar index, let me remove this. So now for US dollar index, we are waiting for market to turn fractal bearish from this daily supply, the daily supply zone. As you can see, market was respecting the daily supplies like this one, gave break of structure. So now we are waiting again for this daily supply to respect. After all this liquidity sweep, now markets generated some significant lows that are going to get swept, and we can also the market can also possibly give a new break of structure. So that's the view for dollar index on daily time frame, and for daily we will look for H1 time frame. On H1 time frame, we are waiting for this low to get breached. Then we will say that the dollar index is also turned fractal bearish. The order flow is shifted from bullish to bearish. Then we will look for sells. That's for US dollar index, nothing more. And for my personal hypothesis, we can see that from the start of the 2025, the dollar index was significantly moving towards downward. Like you can see so much volume towards the downward. So now we can expect that after this trendline resistance break, it might kind of give nice push towards upward like this. Let me show you, like this push towards upwards. But we are not sure, we are just following the order flow. As for daily order flow is bearish. For H1 time frame, we will see fractal structure break, then we will look for bearish setups as from daily, and as from H4 time frame, we are heavily bullish. This is a liquidity sweep. And if market is still bullish, then it will likely give move after. Let me remove this trend line first. Yeah, so let's jump into H1 time frame. So I was saying that after this liquidity sweep, this one market now can just move upwards towards upside, or it can respect the daily order flow and can shift to bearish structure. Then it will give a nice pullback towards upside, and we will look for sells from the other pairs. So that's my view right now for the dollar index. This was all like range H4 demand zone, but we will refine it till the liquidity. Like this was liquidity, so we will refine it like this. So you can see after this liquidity trap, this all demand zone, so it might turn bearish. Now if the 4-hour order flow is still respected. So for Euro USD, let me jump into daily. On daily we shifted to bearish, gave another fractal break towards the downside, and this was a significant liquidity low, so we are waiting for this liquidity low to take out. As for H4 time frame, on H4 For we are also fractal bearish. So you can see that this was also an range supply, like all buy before sell. You can see all these three candles like this one and these all three candles. So they are range supply, but we have a significant liquidity POI. So above this all liquidity POI, this all is a supply. But why I did mark this? So let me tell you one thing. So let me jump into 15-minute time frame. So as you can see that after this liquidity sweep, our market structure shift will be this one. But this low is likely our 80% of the TP, because our TP will be here. So 80% of the TP will be market structure shift. And after that market will come to this zone again and then we will give a move. So this is not the kind of setup that we have. So what I am thinking right now, that markets have this liquidity, so now it will also sweep this high, tap this H1 H4 perfect supply zone, then it will give a market structure shift towards the downside. After tapping this supply zone, like the extreme supply zone, we also have an imbalance to fill, so I think it will sweep this high, tap the supply zone, and then it will give a 15-minute fractal structure shift towards the downside. So that's what is daily 4-hour low time frame order flow, market structure, liquidity, all done in this. So let's jump into the GBP/USD. So on GBP/USD, we are also fractal bearish. We give another backup structure towards the downside. Right now on H4 time frame. So there is a thing. This is also an buy before sell. So all supply zone. But we also have the same thing, the liquidity here in this setup also. So I am waiting for this liquidity to sweep. Then after this liquidity sweep, we'll look for confirmations just after sweep, not from the supply zone or any zone, just we'll look for confirmations. As you can see, market was respecting supply zones like this one, like this one. So I was also expecting market to respect this supply zone. So that's my view right now. On the GBP/USD, we can look for shorts. There is some significant liquidity remaining right now. So that's it. And if our euro and GU, if these zones were to be breached, then we will target all these liquidity highs. Then we will look for buys and our target will be all these liquidity highs. Same in this, all these liquidity highs. As for USD JPY, let me jump into daily time frame. Daily. Let me remove all the drawings. Yeah. So on daily, we are heavily bullish. Like you can see, supporting the trend line. I will show you trend line after. Supporting the trend line, moving towards upward. Gave another break of structure. This one and this one also. Now we tapped a daily supply, and we can see that market is overstretched here. So we might look for a sales opportunity or a retracement towards this gap. So now that's what is on daily. Nothing more. This daily supply. Now let me jump into H1 time frame. So what happened in H1? like tapped this daily, swept the high, gave a significant fractal success shift towards the downside, and with volume, like I will show you the volume on H4, like you can clearly see that market was bullish, sideways, and then bearish. That's how a reversal happens. So we have two view. Look, we have two view right now. The first one is the main view, like we will look for sales from this OT. SL will be here, TP will be this gap, like below the gap or below the gap, I think. This one here, this low. And the second view is that these highs can be swept, but I think they will not sweep. Like we have a liquidity sweep and clearly downside volume, and the dollar index was also in supply zone. So we can expect that this OT zone should be held, and we can look for sales from here. We also have a supply zone, but I think OT is the best right now. But it can also move from supply zone from this one and can deny our entries, like miss our entries, or we can say. So these are two confluences. There is another thing that I also want to mention, that market, this is the third scenario. If these two scenarios were for bias, but this third scenario is for entry. Market could tap this zone, this one, then it can give sales from here. And in this entry, we just have to put our SL just above this zone, because this will be liquidity sweep in this, and we just have to put our SL. So it is kind of like the same setup in BTC, like we have our supply zone, but we have a liquidity here. So our entries will be here, SL will be just above the zone, because we can see that supply was getting respected. So I think according to this zone, that this is a liquidity. The OT zone is the best right now, I think. If you miss from here, then it is what it is, but I think the OT is best right now in this kind of price action. So we will wait for double confirmation. Like this was the first confirmation. When the market will tap this OT zone, we will look for confirmation like volume, market shift towards the downside. Then we will look for sells. From here, our SL will be just this high of the liquidity sweep. And as for some fundamental in this, so there is some fundamental on the USD/JPY setup. So I will tell you what are the confluences. First, the JPY is weak as compared to the dollar right now. Sorry for the typo mistake. Let me correct it. So the JPY is weak as compared to dollar right now due to the appointment of new PM. We are facing some stability issues in the country, and the dollar index is in daily supply. But even if the dollar index is in daily supply, but the US dollar might be stronger than the JPY, so it will not give a significant move towards the downside. This is also one thing. And for yen basket, on daily we are bearish. We are bearish. Let me correct it. On daily we are bearish on H4 and H1. We are kind of in pullback phase, but the pullback phase can be over any time. So if JPY is bullish and the DXY is bearish, we can kind of look for this setup, but the fundamental is not good for this currency, like not normal for this currency, but we can absolutely look for this setup because our technicals are clearly right. It is just for consideration of setup, that's it. So now let's move to next pair. The next is USD CHF. So let me give a daily tour. Daily is fractal bearish. We are respecting the supply. So we gave a breakout structure. This was bump in the road that the market swept. Market swept this high, tapped the supply zone. So now we can clearly look for this is also liquidity, but as you can see that market might not sweep this liquidity. Like this type of liquidity are when the overall structure is shifted to bullish, like market tapped our weekly demand and it is now shifting to bullish, then we can target for this type of liquidities. But right now this is a chain continuation and a mitigation of supplies. So this is not a liquidity right now until we give a breakout structure of this supply. So on daily we can see market tap the supply, also swept the highs of the supply, you can see here. And as for H1, we gave a market structure shift towards the downside with a good volume. So I mark the supply zone with the OT zone. We will look for sells from this setup. Let me remove the trade at this. I will only give you analysis. So I will look for sells from here. The main thing that is not good with setup, the technicals are like A plus. If we give our entries, like the technicals are good, but the main thing that is hindering right now, it is also technical, but you can see that the dollar index didn't give a market structure shift yet. So this might be a fake market structure shift on the USD CHF, and the dollar index might give a market structure shift after some time, after later consolidation or whatever, or this might be a true market structure shift towards the downside. But the technicals are good, so we will take this setup. But it is just a observation that the DXY didn't give a fractal bearish, but the USD CHF gave with a volume, good volume. And for this setup, RSL will be here just slightly 1 to 2 pips above. Let me bring back you the here. Just be here, and here will be 50% of the setup. Let me give 50%. That's for USD CHF. As for USD CAD, let me give a tour. So we were really daily factor bullish, demand expected, giving breakout structures and things like that. So market after sweeping this significant high, like we cannot look for anything for buys right now because we already gave the move. You can see we already gave the move and swept a major fractal liquidity or swing liquidity, you can see. So this liquidity is swept, and right now we can expect a pullback or sweep of the lower time frame liquidity. Wait, yeah. So after this liquidity sweep, we are waiting for market to give a market structure shift toward the downside. Our ultimate target will be this liquidity, and this all liquidity till our demand zone. But the you can say the safe target can be this significant low because it is also just above the 0.5 zone, so we can target till the 0.5. We can see a breaker also here. So this string liquidity is the safe target, and this might be this daily demand might be a good target, but we cannot be sure that the market will move like this, because right now we are already in fractal bullish, so we cannot expect that market to turn like a hell lot of bearish from here. But right now this is the only thing we can look for, because after this high break I cannot look for any buys, because all the major liquidity is swept, so I cannot look for buys right now, and we are just waiting for fractal structure to turn bearish. Then we will look for sales and the sweep of these significant lows. That's why we for USD CAD next setup, the setup in odd. So you can say we are fractal bearish. On the internal structure we are fractal bearish. This is the daily demand. On daily time frame we have two things: breakout structure, liquidity sweep, and this daily demand. Three things, sorry. Other than that there is no three things, and a swing low and a swing high. Let me jump into an lower time frame. Let me go to H4. So on H4 we can see supply respected, supply respected, supply respected, supply respected, even breakout structure towards the downside, this significant breakout structure. Now market tapped this temporary demand. Now it is moving upwards, so we are waiting for this significant liquidity pair to get taken, and then we will look for sales from again this supply zone. Our main TP will be this low, this you can say liquidity low, this one. We are just waiting for this liquidity low to be taken out, and this is just a pullback till we gave the break of structure or market censorship towards this supply zone. That's my view right now for the ODUSD. We are waiting for this supply to tap, liquidity to taken, and we will look for sales. As for energy USD, I think we are a bit overstressed, so I'm waiting for a huge pullback for the energy USD. Like you can see that we have created a nice H1 or H4 or range supply, you can say whatever. We have a liquidity high. We are waiting for this liquidity to high to sweep. Okay, then we will look for sales again from this supply. Other than that, we can also look buys after this fractal structure shift to turn bearish. Like, let me jump into H4. Yeah, we can for buys if we give a break of structure of this demand zone. But in this buy setup, we will have the issues with our target. Like, we know this is liquidity. We know at least that this zone is a liquidity. But we are not sure that if this zone is also a liquidity or a real supply zone. So this might also be a real supply zone. So let me draw the chart. We can look for buys, and from yeah, so we can look for buys after the market shift, and from any zone like newly created zone or whatever till here, till for the safe side. And we can look for sales from this. This one. I know this is just a liquidity high because this is at the extreme supply zone. So we can look for buys till the liquidity high if the price action is good, but I think this is not a wise idea to look for buys here. The sales is better. Go with the trend. As for BTC USD, we tapped on daily demand, extreme one demand, it swept liquidities, mitigated, you can say almost mitigated, or you can say just mitigated previous demands. Break of structure swept all these lows. Now this happened just after the tweet of the Trump. The Bitcoin and the Ethereum and the Solana were the major pairs, or you can just say Bitcoin. It crashed like 10%, making it the biggest dump of history for the Bitcoin. As for Bitcoin, BTC, we are not seeing any setups right now. And as for Ethereum, we just had our bias correct. We gave the break of structure or market structure shift towards downside, and we respected the supply zone, swept this high. So let me teach, or let myself teach you one thing, that here we have many significant liquidity POIs. So what exactly did the market did? So this liquidity POI, as you can see that this was swept, but this was likely to be swept. The main thing was that after this liquidity sweep, we can look for sales from this daily supply. But market swept this liquidity high also. Then it gave its real move towards the downside, and look how beautifully it tapped our daily demand and is now heading upwards towards this high, I think. But it is due to the fundamentals, like after a significant dump, the market is trying to recover itself. That's it. And as for H1, we can see if we avoid this week, we gave a market structure shift towards upside, liquidity swap. And as for buys, I will not look for buys after a significant liquidity high to be after the sweep of a significant liquidity high. So we will just wait for market to shift bearish. I am waiting for market to shift bearish from here, because or it can shift from anywhere, but I will look for sells, not buys. Just after the order flow shift, not before catching and counter trend type. We'll go with the trend after the order flow shifted. As for USD CHF, this setup is good. I will take this setup. As for USD JPY, this setup is also good. And as for buys, we will look buys from this the gap up demand. GBP we only look for sales after this liquidity and the order flow shift. Order flow shift is necessary after the liquidity sweep, targeting this liquidity or the lows. For EURUSD, We also only look for sells. From here, no buys. Buys after this liquidity, significant liquidity sweep. So that's for today's outlook. Thank you. I will update you my positions if I took any entry today.